Only 17. Seriously? The laugh cut through the frozen training yard in the Red Haven Desert, where crooked Christmas lights still clung to the observation tower, and a distorted holiday jingle fizzed out of an ancient radio. The weather-beaten SEAL looked at the girl beside the sniper rifle, swallowed by a parka several sizes too big. 17 years old, Christmas Eve, and a desert trial that was meant to be nothing more than a formality. Nobody expected the night to spill blood. Nobody imagined a teenager would rack up more headshots than the entire SEAL team put together. Not on the one day everyone should have been at home unwrapping gifts and still breathing. The Red Haven facility looked like someone had tried to decorate hell with tinsel. December 24th, 2034. 1900 hours, night shift. The kind of posting that made grown men rethink every decision that led them here. Staff Sergeant Caleb Rourke stood outside the command tent watching his breath crystallize in the air. 42 degrees earlier, 28 now. Holidays meant nothing to the desert. Someone had draped LED lights along the tower rail, blinking red and green against the vast black sky, fighting a losing battle with the emptiness. A plastic Christmas tree leaned tiredly against the armory door, its branches dusted with fine sand. The supply crate radio looped the same 6 Christmas songs. The signal so weak, Bing Crosby sounded like he was singing underwater. "This is some crap, Sarge," Jonah Briggs muttered as he stepped out of the tent holding 2 steaming coffees. "Christmas Eve. My kids open presents in 6 hours and I'm out here freezing my ass off staring at target dummies." Rourke took the cup. "Could be worse. Could be Kandahar." Briggs snorted. Kandahar had heaters. 12 SEALs were on rotation, a skeleton crew for the holiday. Most real training ops had been paused. This shift was supposed to be simple. Maintenance checks, gear inspections, light drills, the kind of half-awake tasks you could do while daydreaming about anywhere else. Lieutenant Rowan Callahan, their OIC, had tried to make it bearable. He okayed the decorations, arranged care packages from home, even let them run card games in the ready room, as long as someone kept an eye on the range. But the desert swallowed every attempt at cheer. The wind carried sand that stung like frostbitten needles. The lights flickered constantly, tossing jittery shadows across the compound. And beneath it all sat the quiet weight of knowing the rest of the world was warm, together, celebrating something kinder than survival. "Movement," called out Alyssa Maddox from the tower. "Vehicle coming in from the north gate." Rourke checked his watch. 23:53 hours, 7 minutes until Christmas Day. "We expecting anyone?" he asked. Lieutenant Rowan Callahan stepped out of the command tent with a tablet in hand, wearing that tight, neutral look that meant someone higher up had just ruined his night. "Apparently we are now." A Humvee rolled through the gate, trailing dust, and came to a stop near the main tent. A Captain Rourke didn't recognize stepped out first, another figure lingering in the shadows behind him. "Who's this supposed to be?" Briggs muttered. "Test evaluation," Callahan said under his breath. "Orders dropped 2 hours ago, encrypted. Above my pay grade." The captain approached with the stiff precision of someone who made a career out of delivering bad news. "Lieutenant Callahan, Captain Holden Marr, Special Operations Assessment Group. We're delivering a candidate for desert qualification on Christmas Eve." His voice carried not even a hint of apology. "The timetable is non-negotiable." The second figure finally emerged from the Humvee. She looked like a kid who'd wandered onto the wrong set. Maybe 5'4", thin in a way that spoke more to rationed meals than training, swallowed by a parka that made her look even smaller. Dark blonde hair braided tight, face pale with something colder than the desert night. And young. God, painfully young. "You've got to be kidding," Briggs whispered. The girl flicked her eyes toward him, gray, sharp, unblinking. Marr handed Callahan a tablet. "Her file. You'll notice the redactions." Rourke caught a glimpse. Nearly every line blacked out. Name, background, prior training all erased. Only a date of birth, a location clearance, and the words "Holiday Clearance" stamped in red. "Sir," Callahan began carefully, "this individual appears qualified," Mar cut in. "Her age is verified and approved above your clearance. Conduct a standard desert marksmanship evaluation. Results transmitted to my command by ZO 600. "Standard," he said, as if any of this was close to standard. Callahan looked at the girl standing perfectly still in the cold. "Tonight?" "Before midnight would be preferable." Mar checked his watch. "I have other obligations." Something in the way he said it prickled along Rourke's spine. Not a threat, not exactly, but the kind of warning that told you the air was one wrong move away from detonating. "Santa's running sniper tryouts now," Briggs muttered. The girl didn't smile, didn't flinch, just stared at the Christmas lights like they were symbols from a language she hadn't spoken in years. Mar climbed back into the Humvee. "Lieutenant, begin your assessment." The vehicle rolled out, leaving them with a problem no manual covered, and a teenager who looked like Christmas hadn't belonged to her in a very long time. Callahan exhaled slowly. "Gear up. We're running the course." "Sir, it's Christmas." "I'm aware," Callahan snapped. "Target's hot. Now." Someone out there clearly believed this mattered more than Christmas morning. The girl finally moved, turning toward the armory, her steps so light they barely pressed into the sand. Rourke watched her disappear into the dim light, then glanced up at the blinking decorations overhead. Whatever this was, it felt wrong in a way that had nothing to do with braking procedure. The ready room smelled like gun oil and instant coffee. Evan Hale, Petty Officer First Class, was in the middle of wrapping presents when the group walked in. Real presents, covered in old newspaper because he'd forgotten actual wrapping paper again. Gifts for his sister's kids, a habit he kept up even when mail wouldn't reach them until well after winter. He looked up at the sound of boots, spotted the girl, and froze with tape stuck to his fingers. "We're babysitting now?" he asked. "We're conducting an evaluation," Callahan corrected, lifting the redacted tablet as if staring long enough might unveil something. "Someone with more rank than sense wants this done tonight." Maddox came down from the tower, spotted the girl, and cycled through disbelief, confusion, and something close to outrage. "Boss, she looks like she should be getting ready for a winter formal." "She's 17, Callahan said. "Exactly," Maddox muttered. The girl stood by the door, hands tucked into her pockets, silent since stepping onto the base. No questions, no complaints, no sign of nerves. She simply existed in the room like a piece of furniture that happened to breathe. Rourke studied her closely. The parka was standard issue but worn down from long months, not weeks. Her boots were properly broken in. Her braid was tight enough to last days. All tiny markers that suggested this wasn't her first time working in the field, even if she was just 17. "Does she have a name?" Briggs asked. Callahan checked the file again. "Everything's blacked out. Apparently none we're cleared to use." "So, what do we call her?" "Candidate," the girl said before anyone else could speak, her voice quiet but steady, tinged with an accent from somewhere north. Montana or Wyoming, the kind of place where winters lasted half the year. "You can call me Candidate," first word she'd spoken. The temperature felt colder after that. Hale carefully set his wrapped gifts on the bench. "Candidate, you know why you're here?" "Desert marksmanship assessment, standard qualification." "On Christmas Eve?" Maddox asked. "I don't schedule the tests." "Where's your family?" she pressed, softer this time. The girl's expression didn't change. "Not relevant to the assessment." "Kid." "I'm not a kid," she corrected calmly. "I'm a candidate. Can we begin?" Callahan's jaw tightened. None of this sat right with him, but the holiday clearance stamps and encrypted orders made pushing back impossible. Briggs and Hale moved out to set up the night course. "Target standard, ranges variable. Wind's a mess," Hale reported. "Gusting 15 knots, shifting every couple minutes. Mirage patterns are weird even for nighttime. Perfect, Callahan said. Real conditions for a real test. He turned to the girl. You've fired in desert environments before? Yes. Night shooting? Yes. Moving targets? Yes. Short answers, clipped, controlled, like someone had trained her to speak only when necessary. Rourke caught Callahan's eye and saw the same uneasy recognition. None of this was normal. Not the orders. Not the timing. Not this kid who stood in their ready room on Christmas Eve, looking like she'd been carved from the same stone as seasoned snipers. Finish before midnight, Callahan murmured, echoing Mars' earlier warning. Feels like stretching this past Christmas Day would be a mistake. The girl nodded once. Outside, the battered radio crackled through waves of static, slowly assembling the tune of Silent Night, while the range beyond flickered like the set of some apocalyptic film. Sodium lamps mounted on portable stands threw harsh pockets of light across the sand, carving the range into uneven patches of visibility. Target frames were spaced from 300 out to 1,000 meters, their silhouettes stark against the dark stretch of desert. The wind had picked up again, dragging thin streams of dust across the firing line like ghosts slipping through the dunes. 26 degrees and falling. Wind shifting between southeast and due east, gusting up to 18 knots. Humidity, barely 8%. The kind of conditions where every pull of the trigger meant wrestling with physics instead of working with it. Rourke set the M110 on the primary firing platform. Standard SEAL issue, 7.62 NATO. Effective out to 800 meters. Though he'd watched seasoned shooters push it farther when the weather wasn't trying to kill their confidence. Tonight wasn't that kind of night. Target sequence is randomized, Maddox called from the control station. Static and movers mixed. Scoring is pure accuracy. Emphasis on headshots per protocol. The SEALs would shoot first. 6 operators, 4 shots each. Baseline numbers before the girl took her turn. Briggs stepped up first. He'd been shooting since he was 12, and qualified expert on just about every rifle the Navy trusted its people with. He settled into position with the fluid familiarity of a man who'd done it thousands of times. Breath steady, fire. First round. Center mass at 400 meters. Solid hit. Second, headshot at 500 ping. Third, moving target at 650, clipped low, but still a hit. Fourth, headshot at 800, 3 headshots out of 4. Strong start, Hale murmured. Hale followed, then Santos Vega, then Maddox. Each put up clean scores, the kind you'd expect from a team that had spent 18 months training shoulder to shoulder. They spotted for each other without speaking, called wind, like they shared the same instincts. By the time Rourke took his turn, they'd stacked 14 headshots out of 24 rounds, just under 70%, well above the requirement. Rourke fired with the detached precision of a man who'd done this in places where missing meant someone else bled. 4 rounds, 3 to the skull, 1 to center mass. A lethal shot anyway. That makes 18, Briggs said. 75%. Not bad for a night that hates us. The team exchanged tired fist bumps, the kind that reminded them why they wore the trident. Meanwhile, the girl lingered just outside the harsh glow of the lamps, hands tucked into gloves for warmth. She watched each shot without changing expression, not reacting to successes or mistakes, just absorbing. Your turn, candidate, Callahan said. She walked to the firing line without rushing. No stretching, no ritual movements, none of the little ticks shooters use to get into rhythm. She simply knelt behind the M110, checked the chamber with a quick efficiency, and settled in. Rourke approached. Need a spotter? No, I'll handle my wind calls, she said. Briggs snorted under his breath. Kid's waiting on a Christmas miracle. Her finger rested alongside the trigger guard. She stared into the range as if the darkness itself was familiar to her. A gust hit hard enough to make the lamps sway. From the radio, a distant, warped. Hark the herald angels sing, drifted over the sand. "Candidate ready?" Maddox asked. The girl's breathing slowed. Rourke noticed her pupils widen, adjusting with eerie control. "Ready," she said. Maddox keyed in the sequence. "Target's hot in 3, 2, 1. The first target lit up at 450 meters. A static silhouette. She fired instantly. The crack rolled across the desert, and every seal froze. The target's head was simply gone. "Perfect headshot," Hale whispered. "First damn round." Second target snapped alive at 600 meters, moving laterally at a runner's speed. A strong northwest gust tore across the line. She nudged her aim 2 degrees right, led the figure half a body length, and fired. The head vanished in a spray of shattered polymer. "Okay," Briggs said, the humor gone from his voice. Third target, 750. Partial cover, only the top third showing. Winds swirling now, southeast gusts bouncing off the thermal layer. The girl didn't rush. She simply waited, 3 long seconds, letting the gust settle before she squeezed the trigger between heartbeats. Another clean headshot. The radio cut out mid-song, like someone had jerked the cord from the wall, and the sudden silence made the distant metallic sway of the target ring even louder. Fourth target, Maddox called. 1,000 meters. Max effective range. Winds pushing 19 knots and climbing. The girl inhaled slowly, held it, and fired. The round took nearly 2 full seconds to reach the silhouette. Then the head disintegrated. 4 rounds, 4 headshots, in conditions that made even one feel impossible. She stood, safed the rifle, and turned toward the team, her face unchanged. "Assessment complete?" she asked. No one spoke. They were all still staring at the mutilated targets downrange. Callahan regained his voice first. "Yeah, complete." Maddox pulled up the firing data on her tablet and checked the numbers again and again, because they felt unreal. SEAL team baseline, 24 total rounds, 18 headshots, 75%. Average shot time, 8.3 seconds. 6 wind call errors. Accuracy dropped past 700 meters. Candidate, 4 rounds, 4 headshots, 100% accuracy. Average 5.1 seconds per shot. 0 wind call errors. Range performance optimal through max distance. The girl had tripled their headshot efficiency, at least in the metric that mattered. Absolute precision under ridiculous conditions. "Run it again," Briggs demanded. "I just did," Maddox said. 3 times. The math holds. "Then run it under different conditions." "Webb," Callahan snapped. "With respect, this is insane. She's 17. We've been doing this longer than she's been breathing. The math shouldn't hold." "It holds fine," Hale murmured as he replayed the target cam footage. "Check her wind reads. She's not guessing. Every correction is dead on." Rourke scrubbed through the shot sequence frame by frame. Her stance was textbook perfect, but that wasn't what rattled him. It was her timing. She fired in the tiny gaps between gusts, threading rounds through brief pockets of still air that lasted half a second at best. Reading nighttime desert wind was like trying to decipher invisible handwriting. You watched how dust drifted, felt microscopic pressure shifts, gauged the way light wavered through moving air. That skill took years to build. She treated it like second nature. "Different weapon," Vega suggested. "Maybe she just knows the M110. "All right," Callahan said. "Rourke, set up the M24. The bolt-action M24 was heavier, older, demanding manual cycling between rounds. No way to rely on semi-auto muscle memory. Rourke set it on the platform. Same target pattern, same distances. The girl picked up the rifle, racked the bolt once to check the action, settled into the firing position. 4 shots, 4 more headshots. Slower this time, since the bolt action meant she had to cycle each round manually. But still, every shot found its mark. "Different position," Briggs said, the edge returning to his voice. Prone is easy. Try it standing. Standing shots were a whole different universe. No ground support, your whole frame exposed to the wind, every muscle responsible for balance. Most snipers avoided them unless the world was ending. But the girl rose, brought the rifle to her shoulder, and sent 4 rounds downrange. 3 drilled through skulls. 1 struck upper chest. She missed, Briggs said, relief creeping in. She didn't miss, Rourke countered, eyeing the wind data. 22 knot gust hit right as she fired. She compensated enough to keep the shot lethal. That's not missing. That's salvaging the round. They ran her through different ranges, different lighting setups, different target rhythms. Every time she read the conditions, adjusted, and hit shots no one her age or experience level should have been capable of touching. Finally, Callahan lifted a hand. Enough. We've got what we need. Sir, this still doesn't add up, Maddox said. Where did she train? Who teaches someone to shoot like this? Callahan looked at the file again, though he already knew what he'd find. Page after page of thick black redactions. Everything that matters is above our clearance, he said. She's 17, Maddox insisted. She's a candidate who outshoots us, Callahan replied, voice flat. That's what goes in the report. The girl stood apart from them, rifle slung and secured, watching the desert wind flicker through the Christmas lights. No pride, no thrill. Just that same unreadable calm she'd brought with her. Rourke approached slowly, the way you'd approach a skittish witness who might bolt. Where'd you learn to shoot? She hesitated, then answered softly, Christmas or not, wind still lies. Not an explanation, more like a belief. But you don't believe the lies, Rourke said. I can't afford to. She walked away toward the supply tent, leaving them with stats that shouldn't exist and questions they weren't allowed to ask. Hale picked up one of his wrapped presents from the bench, still covered in newspaper. You know what gets me? What? Briggs asked. She didn't ask about the presents, didn't even glance at them. Hale turned the package over in his hands. What kind of 17-year-old doesn't care about Christmas gifts? The kind who learned early that survival mattered more than celebrations. The kind who traded childhood for something colder, sharper. Rourke glanced at the firing scores again, then at the blinking lights. Pack it up, Callahan said. I've got to file this report before Marr starts asking questions. But nobody moved. They just stood there in the cold, staring at proof that someone had shaped a teenager into a weapon sharper than all of them combined. On Christmas Eve, in a desert where none of them should have been. Rourke found her about an hour later, sitting on the back bumper of a supply truck, staring into nothing. The temperature had dropped to 23 degrees. Ice clung to exposed metal. She'd pulled her hood up, but her hands were bare, holding a photograph like it was a test she wasn't sure she'd pass. You'll get frostbite, Rourke said. She didn't look up. I've had worse. He sat beside her, giving her space, close enough to talk, far enough not to crowd. A standard move for anyone fragile enough to spook. Family picture? After a moment, she turned the photo so he could see. A man in multicam stood beside a younger version of her, maybe 12, both holding rifles in what looked like Montana backcountry. The man had the worn face of someone who lived outdoors more than inside. The girl in the photo looked happy in a way the present-day version had forgotten. Your father, Rourke said gently, the past tense implied. His chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't kill him. Where did it happen? She pulled the picture back, slipping it into her parka. Classified Christmas op, 6 years ago, she said quietly. He went in and never came out. They sent back a flag and a story that didn't match the dates. 6 years. Rourke did the math. That meant she'd been 11 when she lost him. That's why you're here, he murmured. On Christmas Eve? Her voice stayed steady, almost clinical. He taught me to shoot. Said if I wanted to survive winters, I needed to make every round count. We practiced in conditions like this, cold wind, long nights, while normal people stayed inside where it was warm. He trained you, Rourke said gently. He prepared me, she corrected. She glanced up at the Christmas lights, their faint colors reflecting in her gray eyes. Some people get presents. Some people learn how to survive winter. Rourke thought about his own daughter back home in Virginia, probably already asleep with dreams full of wrapped gifts and soft morning light. The contrast hit him like a punch. How long have you been in the program? He asked. What program? She replied. But the way she said it told him everything. There was one. Something buried off the books. Something that shaped kids into weapons with cleaner precision than most Navy SEALs. The one that sent you here, he said. I volunteered. 17-year-olds don't volunteer to spend Christmas qualifying in the desert, he said. She finally turned to look at him. The ones with nothing else to volunteer for do. That was it. The truth behind every impossible shot and every controlled breath. She wasn't here out of ambition. She was here because it was the only place that still made sense to her. Your mother? Rourke asked. Gone. Different reasons. She pulled the parka tighter. I should prep for the next phase. Next phase? He echoed. You don't think they flew me out here for 4 shots, do you? Something almost resembling humor flickered across her face. That was the easy part. Before Rourke could answer, Captain Marr's voice cracked over the radio. Lieutenant Callahan, movement on the perimeter. Non-drill. Immediate assessment. The room went still. Movement. Real movement. On Christmas Eve. Callahan replied, his voice controlled but tight. Source? Thermals picked up 3 signatures, Maddox reported. Northwest quadrant, moving toward the compound, armed. Rules of engagement? Callahan asked. Marr's voice came back distorted through static. Defend the facility. Candidate is primary asset. Protect at all costs. The girl's expression barely shifted, but Rourke noticed her hands slide into her pockets, right where a concealed sidearm likely waited. This was the setup, she whispered. They want to see how I perform under real pressure. It's a live test. Everything's a test when you're trying to prove you deserve to survive. Outside, the Christmas lights blinked cheerfully, as if nothing had changed. Somewhere, families were unwrapping gifts. Here, they were loading real rounds. The command tent shifted into a tactical operations center in under 90 seconds. Callahan pulled up the thermal feed, 3 heat signatures moving with professional spacing through the northwest approach, keeping to the darkest terrain and avoiding the glow of the decorations. Range? Callahan asked. 1,200 meters in closing, Maddox said. Movement pattern looks trained. They're using the terrain well. No IDs, no transponders, no comms traffic. Could be interceptable. Gear suggests private military, but that's just a guess. Briggs checked his rifle. Could be OPFOR. Someone scheduled a surprise drill on Christmas Eve, with a live candidate on site. Hale shook his head. No, this is the test. Has to be. Rourke glanced at the girl. She stood perfectly still beside the map table, eyes locked on the thermal feed like she was reading a coded language she'd mastered long ago. You knew something like this was coming, he said. I suspected. Mind sharing? He pressed. They told me it was a standard evaluation, she said. But standard evals don't need holiday clearance codes. They don't happen at midnight, and they don't come with redacted orders. She pointed at the screen. This is what they want. How I perform when it's real. Callahan's jaw tightened. Captain Marr, what exactly are our engagement parameters? Static crackled, and then Marr's voice returned, colder than before. Hostile intent confirmed, Captain Marr said. You are authorized for defensive action. Priority 1, protect the candidate. Priority 2, secure the facility. Execute at your discretion. Callahan pushed back. Sir, We've got civilians on site. Mar's voice hardened into something icy. The candidate is not a civilian. She's an asset. Treat her accordingly. Then the line died. Unbelievable, Maddox muttered. We're background actors in her evaluation. On the screen, the 3 thermal signatures split. One stopped at roughly 900 meters, taking a textbook sniper overwatch position. The other 2 moved forward, using cover in a way that screamed professional training. They're testing our response time, Vega said. Callahan didn't argue. Briggs, Vega, northeast positions. Hale, Maddox, take the tower. Rourke. I'll spot for the candidate, Rourke cut in. The entire tent glanced his way. She shoots better than any of us. If this is real, we put our best trigger on the problem. If it's a test, we show them we're not idiots. Callahan hesitated only a breath. Candidate, are you comfortable with live engagement? Wren shrugged off her parka, revealing fitted tactical gear beneath it. Vest properly adjusted, mag pouches placed for efficiency. She had been prepped for this moment long before she stepped foot in Red Haven. Yes, sir. All right, Callahan started. Rourke spots. Sniper first, she cut in calmly. Then the ground pair. Removing Overwatch collapses their coordination, forces the others to react, not strategize. Callahan slowly nodded. Accurate assessment. Get her into position. They sprinted to the primary sniper nest, a fortified perch with sandbag walls and a clear view toward the northwest. Rourke set up the night vision spotter scope, while she assembled the M110, with movements smooth enough to look rehearsed. You've done this before, he said. Not exactly this, she replied, settling into her breathing. Close enough. Through the thermal feed, the hostile sniper positioned himself at roughly 875 meters, tucked behind a rock formation, with clean lines of sight. Wind? Wren asked. Rourke checked. 16 knots northwest, gusting to 19. Temp 21 degrees. Pressure steady. Mirage minimal. Clean air. She adjusted elevation and windage, making the tiny, exact corrections that separated a hit from a wasted round. Target acquired, she murmured. In Rourke's scope, the hostile looked solid. Skilled posture, strong concealment. A real shooter. Firing solution confirmed, Rourke said. You have the shot. Her breathing slowed. Inhale, exhale, long, controlled release. Some legends are forged when the world is celebrating, she whispered. Then she fired. The hostile sniper dropped without so much as a twitch. Through thermal, Rourke watched the body's heat bloom collapse behind the rock. A perfect headshot at 875 in gusting wind. The kind of shot that meant the difference between going home alive and being shipped home under a flag. Target neutralized, he confirmed. Wren was already shifting, tracking the next threat. No triumph, no pause. Not even a flicker of satisfaction. Just immediate, cold transition. Downrange, the 2 advancing hostiles froze, realizing their overwatch had just vanished. They're reassessing, Rourke murmured. Give them a second. There. The 2 remaining signatures split fast, ditching careful spacing for pure speed. One veered left toward the vehicle depot, the other cut right for the eastern fence, both trying to get close enough that her long-range advantage meant nothing. Left target, Wren said calmly. Range 680 in closing. Wind shift east, 12 knots. He's moving at... She fired before finishing the sentence. The hostile dropped mid-stride, tumbling across the sand. Headshot, Rourke confirmed. The man, if he'd been real, would never have known what hit him. Right target changing course, Maddox called over comms. Heading for the eastern bunker. If he makes it behind that wall... But Wren was already adjusting. The hostile was sprinting in a tight serpentine, trained evasion. Range 520, Rourke said. Closing fast. He'd have hard cover in seconds, except for the 20 feet of open space he had to cross. Wren waited. No tension in her shoulders. No panic. Just a cold, patient stillness. The hostile committed to the sprint. She led him 3 feet, factoring speed, angle, and the shifting wind, and fired. The round caught him mid-air. He hit the sand hard and didn't move. All hostiles down, Callahan confirmed. Sweep teams, verify. Briggs and Vega headed out with Hale, Maddox providing overwatch from the tower. Rourke kept scanning through his scope. No movement. 3 threats, 3 shots, 3 kills. Wren safed the rifle and sat back. Under the harsh compound lights, Rourke finally saw her expression clearly. Still pale, still composed. But something new flickered in her eyes. Recognition. This was what she'd been shaped for. "You okay?" he asked. 3 confirmed. 3 confirmed? She nodded once. "Then I'm okay." Briggs's voice crackled through comms. "Boss, you're gonna want to see this." 5 minutes later, they circled the bodies. Not bodies. Training dummies. High-end models with thermal output and remote operation. But still dummies. "A drill," Maddox muttered. "No," Wren said, crouching beside one. She examined the destroyed head as if grading her own work. "A test. They wanted to see if I perform under real stress. You don't get that shooting paper." Vega pointed at the dummy's gear. "Professional loadout, not cheap. Someone poured a lot of money into this setup." Callahan's radio crackled again. Mar's voice returned, crisp and satisfied. "Assessment complete. Results exceed parameters. Candidate has demonstrated required capabilities under combat conditions. Well done, Lieutenant. And excellent shooting, candidate." Wren stood. "Thank you, sir. Your transport arrives at 0500. Until then, you're released to facility discretion." Mar out. Released to facility discretion, like she was a piece of equipment put on standby. Rourke checked his watch. 0147 hours, Christmas Day. While families slept across the country, a 17-year-old had just killed, or simulated killing, 3 targets to prove her value to people who wouldn't even give her a name on paper. "You hungry?" Rourke asked softly. She blinked, as if the question didn't belong on the same planet. "What?" "It's Christmas. Mess tents got hot food. Not gourmet, but way better than MREs." "I should prep my gear for extraction," Wren said. "Your gear's already prepped," Rourke replied. "And your ride won't be here for another 3 hours. Come eat." The rest of the team chimed in almost at once. "We've got pie," Hale added. "Real pie. My wife mailed it." "And coffee that doesn't taste like motor oil," Maddox said. "Well, mostly." The girl looked at them like they were speaking a language she used to know, but hadn't heard in years. "Why?" "Because you just saved all our asses in a drill we didn't know was happening," Briggs said. "And because it's Christmas. Nobody should be alone on Christmas, not even candidates." She hesitated, actually hesitated, and for the first time since she'd arrived, uncertainty crossed her face. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted quietly. "Do what?" Rourke asked. "Be around people who aren't testing me." Something tightened in Rourke's chest. "Come on, kid. We'll figure it out together." They walked toward the mess tent with Wren in the middle of the group. Christmas lights blinked overhead, reflecting in her eyes like stars she'd learned to navigate by, but never felt entitled to wish on. Inside, the mess tent held the kind of warmth the desert refused to offer. A space heater hummed in the corner. The coffee pot sputtered. Someone had hung stockings on the wall, empty, because nobody had remembered to fill them. But the effort mattered anyway. Hale pulled out the apple pie his wife had sent. Somehow, it had survived the mailing process, mostly intact. He sliced it with his field knife, like he was serving a holiday feast instead of dessert rations on paper plates. Wren sat at the end of the table, her slice untouched. "Not hungry?" Maddox asked. "I don't remember the last time I had pie." "Then you're definitely eating it." Hale nudged the plate closer. "Doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor." I play one in training videos, he said with a grin. Close enough. Eat. She picked up the fork and took a tentative bite. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but something near its shadow. It's good. Marissa is a wizard, Hale said proudly, pulling out his phone and showing a picture of his wife and 2 kids in front of a Christmas tree. They're probably tearing into presents right now. I'll end up cleaning the aftermath when I get home. Wren studied the photo. How old are they? 7 and 9. Boys. Absolute chaos gremlins. Do they know what you do? They know Dad disappears sometimes to keep people safe. That's enough for now. Briggs pulled out a picture of his 5-year-old daughter wearing reindeer antlers. Vega showed his family. Maddox her parents. Rourke showed a photo of Mia, asleep on Christmas Eve, with a stuffed fox tucked under her arm. Normal lives. Normal holidays. The world Wren had been trained to protect, but would never get to belong to. You have anyone? Maddox asked gently. Wren shook her head. Not anymore. The silence settled heavy for a few seconds. Then Callahan stepped in holding a small box wrapped in the same newspaper Hale had been using. He cleared his throat. Figured since you're here on Christmas you should have something. He set the box in front of her. She stared at it, as if expecting it to detonate. I don't understand. It's a present, Callahan said. You open it. I didn't get any of you anything. You kept us alive in a drill we didn't know was coming, Briggs said. Pretty solid gift, he gestured. Open it. With careful, almost surgical movements, Wren unwrapped the newspaper. Inside was a patch. Handmade, not regulation. It was clearly handmade, stitched together from someone's repair kit, and a little bit of downtime creativity. A small Christmas tree embroidered in green thread, with crosshairs where the star should have been, and beneath it, in neat, careful lettering, Desert Knoll. It's not much, Rourke said, but it felt right. Wren held the patch like it might shatter if she breathed too hard. Her hands trembled just slightly. I don't need presents, she whispered, the last word cracking almost imperceptibly. Nobody needs presents, Hale said softly. But everybody deserves one, especially on Christmas. She pressed the patch to her chest, right over her heart. Thank you. Callahan sat across from her, elbows on the table. Want the truth? He asked. We're debating whether to report what we saw tonight. Your age, the situation, whatever program you're tied to. None of it feels right. He leaned forward. You know that, don't you? I volunteered. You're 17, Callahan shot back. You can't volunteer for this. Someone's using you. Her expression hardened instantly. I don't need rescuing. Everybody needs rescuing sometimes, he said quietly. Not me. She rose, gripping the patch in one hand. I don't need a holiday. I need the mission done. That's all I have. That's all I am. That's bull, Briggs snapped. You should be worrying about homework and stupid prom drama, not headshots and win calls. I stopped being a kid when my father died. Her voice turned to ice. I don't get to go back. I don't get to be normal. She gestured around the tent. The pie, the presents. This isn't my world anymore. It could be, Rourke said gently. No, it can't. She looked at each of them, her gray eyes softer for a moment. But thank you for pretending it could be. Just for tonight. At the doorway, she paused, glanced at the blinking lights. Merry Christmas, she said. Then she stepped back into the cold darkness where she seemed to belong. Callahan's report, filed at 0430, was a masterpiece of strategic omission. Candidate demonstrated exceptional marksmanship under adverse conditions. Assessment parameters exceeded. Recommend advanced placement. No mention of her age. No concerns about the shadow program behind her. No note about the look on her face when she held that patch. Because what was he supposed to do? The operation lived far above his clearance level. The people running her training had more power than he could imagine. And she herself had made one thing painfully clear. She didn't want saving. Sometimes people chose paths that were breaking them, and all you could do was watch. At 500, Captain Mars' Humvee rolled back through the gate. Wren stood waiting, gear packed, Desert Knoll tucked carefully in her pocket. The oversized parka swallowed her frame again, returning her to something small, forgettable, unremarkable. The SEALs gathered to see her off. Not protocol, but nothing about this night had followed protocol. "Take care of yourself," Rourke said. "I will. And if you ever need anything, you know where to find us." She almost smiled. "Thank you for the pie." Mar opened the Humvee door. "Time to go, candidate." She climbed in without a glance back. As the vehicle rolled toward the gate, Briggs muttered what they were all thinking. "That's messed up." "Yeah," Callahan agreed quietly. "We're just gonna let them take her?" Briggs asked. "What choice do we have?" The Humvee's taillights disappeared into the pre-dawn dark. Rourke wandered back to the mess tent. The Christmas lights still blinked faintly, though sunrise would wash them out soon. Hale's pie plates sat half empty. Stockings still hung limp on the wall. On the table, he spotted the newspaper wrapping from Wren's present. He smoothed it out and froze. It was a Christmas edition, dated December 25th, 6 years ago, the day her father died. Someone had chosen that exact issue. Someone had wrapped her gift in the record of her loss. Cruel coincidence, or a very deliberate message? Classified programs didn't do coincidences. He folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his pocket, the closest thing to evidence of a truth he couldn't quite name, but could feel, was wrong. Outside, the radio crackled back to life, picking up Silent Night. The desert swallowed the sound like it swallowed everything else. 6 months later, Rourke received a letter. No return address. Postmarked from some tiny corner of Virginia he'd never heard of. Inside was a single handwritten line. "Thank you for the pie." That was all the letter said. No name, no return address beyond a vague Virginia postmark. But tucked behind the note was a photograph. Wren, older now, or maybe just worn into a sharper version of herself, stood among a group of operators Rourke didn't recognize. No patches, no unit insignia, nothing that could place them anywhere on an official roster. Ghost Unit. Black Ops. The kind of team that didn't technically exist. She stood at the center, rifle in hand, posture confident, steady. And on her shoulder, bright even in the grainy print, was the Desert Knoll patch. On the back of the photo, in her careful handwriting, was a single line. "Some legends are forged when the world is celebrating." Rourke showed it to Callahan, who stared at it for a long time. "Should we do something?" Rourke asked. "Like what?" Callahan replied quietly. "I don't know. Something." "She made her choice," Callahan said, handing the picture back. "We have to respect that, even if it sits wrong. She's 18 now, old enough to die for her country officially, instead of in the shadows." Rourke slipped the photo into his wallet beside the picture of Mia. Two girls, with two completely different lives. One protected by men like him, and one becoming the kind of person men like him relied on when everything went to hell. The comparison felt heavy in a way he couldn't shake. Christmas arrived again. This year, Rourke was home watching Mia tear into presents under the tree. She squealed over dolls, books, art supplies, her face glowing with the simple, safe joy of being 11 and loved. His wife squeezed his hand. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said, smiling at their daughter. "Just thinking about someone who should be here, but isn't. Someone from deployment. Something like that." Later, after Mia fell asleep and the house settled into peaceful quiet, Rourke pulled out the photo again. He studied the girl who had outshot a SEAL team, who'd saved them in a drill they didn't know was staged, who'd eaten pie like it was an unfamiliar luxury, who'd accepted a handmade patch like it was contraband. A girl who had already chosen a path that would likely consume her before she ever reached 25. Outside the window, the Christmas lights blinked red and green, warm and inviting. He wondered if she was somewhere freezing again, somewhere dangerous, somewhere carving out a legend no one would ever attach a real name to. He wondered if she remembered the taste of that pie, if she knew she mattered, even briefly. If she understood that, for one night, a team of hardened operators had tried to hand her a piece of childhood she refused to admit she'd lost. Snow began to fall outside. Inside, his daughter slept safely beneath layers of soft blankets. And somewhere far away, a girl with gray eyes and unshakable aim moved through a world that had traded her innocence for a weapon's purpose. Rourke raised his coffee in a quiet salute. "Merry Christmas, Sniper," he whispered to the dark.